WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. I'm Shivan Channa. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest.
Well, I'm Jyotsna Kumar. On the show today, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has activated the Minnesota National Guard after federal immigration agents fatally shot a Minneapolis man, sparking fierce protests and national outrage. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump on Sunday blamed the deaths of the two Americans by federal agents on democratic chaos. We'll get you all the details on that story.
And on World DNA, today, 26th of January, India celebrates its 77th Republic Day, marking the adoption of the Constitution and the birth of a nation as a sovereign republic. A grand parade is scheduled little later today in New Delhi, showcasing India's military strength, cultural diversity and democratic pride. We'll be bringing you all the updates right here on WION World is One. Let's start with the headlines first. This is World DNA.
U.S. President Donald Trump blames Democrats-led chaos for killing of two Americans by federal agents in Minneapolis. And this as multiple lawmakers from Trump's Republican Party call for a thorough probe into the killing.
Former U.S. Presidents Bill Clinton and Barack Obama condemned the killing of U.S. citizens in Minneapolis. Clinton urges citizens to stand up and speak out, while Obama and former First Lady Michelle say the killing is a wake-up call.
A massive winter storm paralyzes eastern and southern states in the U.S. At least 7 people have died and over 1 million customers are without power. Over 17,000 flights have been cancelled so far.
Israel says it would allow a limited reopening of the Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt after recovering remains of the last hostage in the territory. Reopening Rafah is part of the truce framework announced in October.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio warns Iraq against a pro-Iranian government. Washington is reportedly concerned over the expected return of Nouri al-Maliki as Prime Minister.
Chief of Iran's judiciary warns those behind the anti-government protests could expect punishment without the slightest leniency. According to a US-based rights group, more than 41,000 people have been arrested so far.
Hundreds march in Jammu and Kashmir's Poonch carrying a 200 feet long Indian flag on the eve of India's Republic Day. Country is marking the 77th anniversary of adoption of its constitution today.
Gold prices surged past $5,000 per ounce to a record high as investors buy safe havens amid geopolitical tensions and economic uncertainty, extending a historic rally underpinned by strong demand and central bank buying.
Now, U.S. President Donald Trump has blamed the deaths of two Americans by federal agents to what he describes as a democratic chaos.
And this comes as his administration faces mounting criticism over its mass immigration crackdown in Minneapolis. Less than 3 weeks after federal agents killed Renee Good, another 37-year-old American, Alex Pretty, was shot and killed by federal officers in the same city 3 weeks later.
Now, the Trump administration quickly asserted that Pretty intended to harm the agents, citing a pistol they said was recovered from him.
However, a video shared widely on social media showed Pretty never drew a weapon, with agents firing around 10 shots at him seconds after he was sprayed in the face with chemical irritant and thrown to the ground. Trump attributed the deaths to Minnesota Democratic elected officials, including Governor Tim Walz. In a post on his Truth Social network, he claimed Democrat-run cities and states are refusing to cooperate with ICE. And the two deaths in Minneapolis were a result of the Democrat-ensued chaos. Walz, with Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, continued to urge the Trump administration to pull U.S. immigration agents out of their state.
Donald Trump. So my question is, what's the plan, Donald Trump? What is the plan? What do we need to do to get these federal agents out of our state?
However, the U.S. Border Patrol Commander at Large said in a briefing that the immigration mission continues despite the tragedy.
Our Title VIII immigration mission continues unabated here in Minneapolis, despite yesterday's tragedy that was preventable by folks making better choices, politicians, journalists, and would-be anarchists and rioters.
Former U.S. President Bill Clinton decried what he described as horrible scenes in Minneapolis after the killings of Pretty and Good, and urged Americans to protest what he called unacceptable government action. The Obamas also issued a statement condemning the shooting incidents, calling them a wake-up call for all Americans that many of the core values of U.S. are under assault.
Hundreds of protesters have taken to the streets of Minneapolis in response to the deployment of federal immigration agents in the city. Demonstrators are chanting slogans like ICE, out now, no accountability, and carrying signs demanding justice for Alex Pretty and Renee Good. Well, it seems all is not well within the Trump administration. Senator Ted Cruz, a Texas Republican, has criticized the U.S. president.
And this is, of course, after Donald Trump's tariff policy came into light. And he criticized in closed-door donor meeting, and this according to recordings obtained by Axios. And in the audio recording of Ted Cruz that has surfaced and is now in the spotlight, Cruz warned Trump's policies could tank the economy and may lead to impeachment if Republicans suffer major losses in the 2026 midterms.
The Texas senator expected to run for president in 2028 said that after Trump introduced the tariffs in early April 2025, Cruz and a few other senators had a call with him.
And they had urged the U.S. president to stand down. However, despite stretching till midnight, the call, quote unquote, did not go well. And the recordings, nearly 10 minutes in total, were provided to Axios by a Republican source and were made in early and middle 2025.
Cruz has repeatedly criticized U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. In the recordings, he portrayed him as politically aligned with conservative commentator Tucker Carlson. According to Axios, Cruz has publicly feuded with Carlson over foreign policy, but has generally avoided linking Carlson and Vance in public. But in the recordings, according to Axios, Cruz can be seen making that connection explicitly.
Now, according to the recordings obtained by Axios, the Texas senator has alleged that Vance and Carlson were involved in the removal of former National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who supported military action against Iran. Carlson told Axios that he didn't have anything to do with the ousting of Waltz or the hiring of Davis. Well, in more news from the United States, a brutal winter storm is sweeping across the United States, bringing cold, deadly, crippling power outages and travel chaos.
Now, from the south to the northeast, millions are being warned to stay indoors as Arctic air follows close behind. Snow, sleet and freezing rain swept across large parts of the country on Sunday, forcing mass flight cancellations and leaving more than 1 million without electricity. Officials warned the situation could worsen as an Arctic air mass follows the storm, pushing temperatures to dangerously low levels for days.
Now, the National Weather Service say that icy conditions could linger well into next week, with repeated rounds of refreezing making roads and sidewalks treacherous. In its latest advisory, the Weather Service warned that snow and sleet impacts will continue, keeping surfaces icy and hazardous to both drivers and pedestrians. Heavy ice is also expected to bring long-duration power outages, extensive tree damage, and impossible travel, particularly in regions unaccustomed to severe winter weather.
The storm has already turned deadly. Louisiana officials confirmed 2 deaths from hypothermia, marking the first storm-related fatalities. In New York City, Mayor Zohran Mamdani said 5 people were found dead outdoors over the weekend amid freezing temperatures, calling the extreme cold a stark reminder of its dangers.
Now, power outages are adding to the crisis, especially across the southern United States. Tracking site PowerOutage.com reported more than 1 million customers without electricity by Sunday afternoon, and emergency warnings are in effect across much of the country. Authorities from Texas through the Carolinas and up to New York have been urging residents to stay home unless travel is absolutely necessary. Texas emergency official posted a clear message saying stay off the roads. At least 20 states and Washington, D.C. have declared state of emergency as the storm pushes northeast. The northeast is now bracing for the worst of the system.
Snow and sleet moved into heavily populated cities, including Philadelphia, New York and Boston. Washington, D.C. woke up to several inches of snow followed by heavy sleet, prompting the preemptive closure of federal offices on Monday. Air travel has been severely disrupted.
And of course, major airports in Washington, Philadelphia and New York saw near total shutdowns. Flight tracking data shows more than 11,000 flights canceled nationwide on Sunday, and this is on top of over 4,000 cancellations the day before. Nearly 2,500 flights scheduled for Monday have already been scrapped. Now, President Donald Trump said federal authorities are monitoring the storm closely, and meteorologists say that the storm is linked to a disruption in the polar vortex.
Forecasters warn the worst may not be over, not just yet. The latest outlook calls for heavy snow from the Ohio Valley into the northeast. with up to 18 inches possible in parts of New England. Much of the southeast and mid-Atlantic can expect rain and freezing rain, along with bitter Arctic cold, which continues to threaten travel, power supplies and lives across the eastern two-thirds of the nation as well. There is a war alert in Iran. US naval assets are amassing in the Arabian Sea and the alarm bells are ringing for yet another military showdown in West Asia.
Now, with daggers already drawn, Iran and the United States are seemingly positioning themselves, and reports are emerging of Supreme Leader Iran's Ayatollah Ali Khamenei bunkering down. More about it in our next report. Take a look.
West Asian war theater is heating up. Two sworn enemies are once again on the warpath. More U.S. military assets are heading towards the Arabian Sea, positioning themselves at the gates of Persian Gulf with enemy on the radar. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei has gone in hiding. The Supreme Leader is reportedly shifted to a bunker in Tehran. Iran's president has already issued a warning. Any attack on Iran will be considered an act of war with Supreme Leader in bunker. His third son, Masoud Khamenei, is reportedly working as a de facto leader, coordination between the executive branches of the government and security forces. Tensions are running high in and around Iran, especially after widespread protests swept the country. The protests were put down using force, but it exposed the vulnerability of Islamic Republic. And 28 days since it was ignited, Iran still faces an internet shutdown.
The killing on the streets of Iran may have subsided, but the brutality continues. The violent repression of the Iranian people does not solve any of the country's problems. On the contrary, it creates conditions for further human rights violations, instability and bloodshed.
The military buildup in the Arabian Sea was set in motion at the peak of these protests. When U.S. President promised Iranians that help is on the way, Tehran doubled down on this treat and warned attack on U.S. military assets in West Asia in response. Donald Trump has toned down the rhetoric since then, but has refused to take the strikes off the table. USS Abraham Lincoln is on its way to the Arabian Sea. U.S. Central Command has confirmed the presence of Air Force F-15E Strike Eagle in West Asia, and total number of U.S. troops in the region has surged to 50,000 personnel. U.S. CENTCOM Chief ADM Brad Cooper is also in West Asia, meeting top Israeli officers. Tehran, on the other hand, is also taking aggressive posture. Country's military says it is more ready than ever. IRGC. The sworn loyalists of Islamic Republic are drawing the red line for U.S. top Revolutionary Guards. Commander Ahmad Vahidi has vowed a strong response if U.S. decides to attack. This comes a day after IRGC chief said his forces have their finger on the trigger. The military buildup is similar to what it was before U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities last year. Both sides, separated by oceans and continents, are once again on each other's striking range, threatening the region with yet another military confrontation.
Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with U.S. envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to discuss the future of Gaza.
Well, Netanyahu's office confirmed this meeting, adding that the trio discussed the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire. Talks also included efforts to demilitarize Gaza and lay the groundwork for long-term peace in the region. An Israeli official, however, criticized Trump aides after this meeting. According to local media, Witkoff reportedly pressured Israel to open the Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt, even if Hamas fails to return the remains of the last Israeli hostage, Ran Gvili.
And well, the Israeli official called Witkoff a lobbyist for Qatari interests, claiming that the U.S. envoy pushed for placing Turkey on the Rafah border. The Gaza side of the crossing has remained under the control of the Israeli military since 2024.
The Gvili family called on Netanyahu to tell the US envoys that efforts should be made to return their son if they want to move forward with regional peace and the reconstruction of Gaza. However, Ali Shah, who is the head of the US-backed Transitional Palestinian Committee set to temporarily administer Gaza, said that the Rafah border crossing will likely reopen in the coming week.
Now, on Thursday, the United States announced plans for a new Gaza that will be rebuilt from scratch and will include residential towers, data centers, as well as seaside resorts. Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, called for investments of at least $25 billion to rebuild the territory's destroyed infrastructure and public services.
The Russia-Ukraine war that has now entered, well, it's nearly completing its fourth year, is at a crucial juncture.
And for the first time in 4 years, there exists a possibility that the heads of both the warring nations can face each other at the negotiation table.
Well, representatives from both the nations met together in a first-of-its-kind trilateral peace talk brokered by the US in Abu Dhabi. After the two-day-long negotiations, both Russia and Ukraine have agreed to meet for a second time.
The talks slated for February 1st could involve Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. And this is according to an Axios report that cited a U.S. official familiar with the matter.
Washington says the trilateral talks in Abu Dhabi went as well as could be expected. Ahead of the meetings, Russian President Vladimir Putin held a meeting with U.S. Special Presidential Envoy Steve Witkoff and businessman Jared Kushner, which was described as extremely substantive, constructive, frank, and based on trust by Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov. The talks focused on the Ukrainian settlement and also lasted for about 4 hours.
But it's not just the U.S. hinting at a possible presidential meeting. President Zelensky has suggested a second meeting could happen as soon as next week. Earlier, he met U.S. President Donald Trump for about an hour on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos as well.
The Abu Dhabi talks, the first trilateral meeting since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine back in 2022, ended without a concrete breakthrough, but all sides hailed the discussions as a significant step towards ending the war. However, the Kremlin refuses to drop its demand that Kiev withdraw forces from eastern Donbass and remains committed to its maximalist objectives.
Well, meanwhile, Russia accused Ukraine of attacking an ambulance in Ukrainian territory under Moscow's control and killing 3 medics. Now, later, it reported a Ukrainian missile attack on energy infrastructure in Belgorod. And amid this, the Ukrainian president has sought more air defense support from allies. Zelensky made these demands in Lithuania, where he is taking part in a ceremony to commemorate the 1863 uprising in Poland and Lithuania against the Tsarist Russia.
The two-day talks concluded as waves of Russian airstrikes targeted Ukraine's heavily damaged energy infrastructure, killing 1 person and injuring 35 others. Russia faced criticism for launching drones and missile attacks on Kiev and Kharkiv, Ukraine's 2 largest cities. Even as the peace talks were underway, Kiev's critical infrastructure was severely affected, with around 6,000 buildings left without heating.
Now, Ukraine and Russia had first met for talks on ending the war on February 28, 2022. The two sides met again in Antalya and in Istanbul in March 2022. And as the conflict continued through 2023 and 2024, there were no attempts at fresh diplomacy. But Trump's return to the White House in January 2025 triggered a restart.
Well, unrest and discontentment is blowing up in the UK over the Labour government's decision to turn a former military site into an asylum accommodation.
And hundreds of people marched in Crowborough protesting against the move. Crowborough is one of the 2 military sites the government has announced in 2025 that it would serve to house asylum seekers, along with Cameron Barracks in Scotland's Inverness. The site in Crowborough can house up to 600 asylum seekers.
The site, which once served as a military facility, began housing migrants on the 22nd of January as part of the government's effort to reduce the costly reliance on hotels for asylum seeker accommodation. As of January 5th, the government said 197 hotels were being used to house asylum seekers, down from more than 400 at its peak under the previous government. Latest Home Office figures also show the number of asylum seekers temporarily housed in hotels increased by 13% to over 36,000 at the end of September.
Now, campaigners opposed to the Home Office's decision to place asylum seekers in Kerbero barracks are now calling on the local council to issue a stop notice to halt the move of people onto the site. Protesters waved Union Jack and England flags and voiced their dissatisfaction with the government. Some chanting, quote unquote, "We want Labour out."
For our families, we're scared for the future of the country. But from what we're doing here, the solidarity and what we're doing in Cobra now today, to show people, like the government, people can't ignore that we are just normal people from normal backgrounds that have come together under the banner of our flag, because we've had enough of what's going on. We've had enough of the weak borders.
According to Home Office, the Crowborough Asylum Inn has round-the-clock security with CCTV and strict sign-in processes for residents. The facility will host single male asylum seekers aged between 18 and 65.
Now, tensions have been building for years around the British government's approach to accommodating migrants while their asylum claims are being processed. Immigration has become a major political issue across Western nations as they struggle to manage growing numbers of people seeking asylum. Now, most asylum seekers are fleeing conflict, economic hardship, climate-related disruption, or political oppression.
In the United Kingdom, the discussion has centered on migrants attempting dangerous crossings of the English Channel in small boats operated by smuggling networks.
All right, well, it's time for a very short break on World Day. Don't go anywhere. We've not signed up on the other side. India is celebrating its 77th Republic Day today. We'll get you all the details, all the ground updates from there. As part of the festivities, a 90-minute long parade showcasing India's military might and cultural diversity is set to take place in New Delhi. We'll get you the latest. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Beyond What Is One.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
And welcome to a brand new edition of South India, a daily dynamic show that will capture the pulse of southern states.
By blending the special stories, the breaking alerts, and the culture developments as well.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
WION India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Jyotsna. I'm Shivan. Lots more to discuss. Let's start with the headlines.
India celebrates 77th Republic Day. Massive parade in New Delhi to display India's military might, development journey and cultural diversity.
US Secretary of State Marco Rubio warns Iraq against a pro-Iranian government. Washington is reportedly concerned over the expected return of Nouri al-Maliki as Prime Minister.
Israel says it would allow a limited reopening of Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt after recovering remains of the last hostage in the territory. Reopening Rafah is part of the Cruz framework announced in October.
The chief of Iran's judiciary warns those behind the anti-government protests could expect punishment without the slightest leniency. According to a US-based rights group, more than 41,000 people have been arrested so far.
US President Donald Trump blames Democrats-led chaos for killing of 2 Americans by federal agents in Minneapolis. And this as multiple lawmakers from Trump's Republican Party called for a thorough probe into the killing.
A massive winter storm paralyzes eastern and southern states in the US. At least 7 people have died and over 1 million customers are without power. Over 17,000 flights have been cancelled so far.
A ferry carrying over 340 passengers sinks in southern Philippines, leaving at least 8 dead. At least 138 people have been rescued so far.
Asian Pacific markets broadly slide, with investors watching safe haven gold prices and broader economic cues ahead of key data and earnings. Japan's Nikkei slides more than 1.5%. South Korea's Kospi and Hong Kong Hang Seng Index decline about 0.5%.
Manchester United dealt a blow to Arsenal's Premier League title charge. Matthias Cunha's superb strike clinches a thrilling 3-2 win over the leaders at Emirates Stadium.
On to Leeds was a big problem for Manchester United. This is that's a superb strike.
And while India is celebrating its 77th Republic Day today.
The centerpiece of the celebration is the massive parade in New Delhi displaying India's military might, development journey and cultural diversity. The ceremonial march past Kartavya Path will include units from the armed forces, paramilitary forces, auxiliary civil forces, NCC and NSS. The 90-minute long parade this year will feature Indian military's newly raised units and major weapon systems. 30 tableaux from various states, union territories and central government ministries and departments will be showcased during the parade. They will exhibit a unique mix of 150 years of Vande Mataram, the national song, and the nation's rapid progress on the back of growing self-reliance across sectors.
Now, the Tri-Services tableau would depict Operation Sindoor, representing the collective strength, unity and integration of the three services. A total of 7 marching contingents of the Indian Army, including the animal contingent, will be taking part in the march. The Army's 18 marching contingents and 13 bands will also be taking part in the parade. A battle array format will also be showcased by the Army for the first time.
The event will conclude with a flypast by 29 aircraft, including Rafales, Su-30s, MiG-29s and Apaches.
President of the European Council, Antonio Costa, and the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, will be the chief guests at the parade.
A session court in Pakistan has sentenced activist Iman Zainab Mazari Hazir and her wife Hadi to 17 years in prison for tweets made during 2021 to 2025.
Now, Iman and Hadi were tried under Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act, popularly known as SPECA. The charges against them include offensive tweets against important state institutions and supporting the agenda of Balochistan Liberation Army and Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan.
Human rights group Amnesty has condemned the arrest. It has accused Pakistan of sustained campaign of judicial harassment and intimidation. PECA law was amended last year by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's government. Under this law, aspersions against members of the judiciary, the armed forces and national or provincial assembly are punishable offences. Critics say the law protects the state institutions from any type of criticism.
Now, the latest judgment on Iman and Hadi has sparked widespread condemnation, especially from human rights groups and opposition political parties. Human Rights Council of Pakistan has called it a dangerous link in the chain of silencing powerful voices for human rights in Pakistan.
Prominent leader of jailed Prime Minister Imran Khan's PTI and Chief Minister of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Sohail Afridi, has called it injustice and said constitution and law are merely a piece of paper in Pakistan.
Alliance of Opposition Parties, TTAP, has also issued a statement condemning the decision as a blot on democracy and justice. Conviction of Iman and Hadi once again brings a spotlight on functioning and independence of judiciary in Pakistan. A 23-year-old Hindu man was reportedly burnt alive on January 23rd in Dhaka's Narsingdi area.
According to reports, miscreants closed the shop from outside and set it on fire while Chanchal Bhaumik was still inside. He was sleeping at the time. His family has alleged murder and has demanded justice for him. In recent weeks, there has been an increase in attacks Pardon me, it's been an increase in the attacks on Hindus in Bangladesh. Just a few days ago, grocery store owner Moni Chakraborty was allegedly attacked with sharp weapons in the same area. He later died of his injuries.
And earlier this month, newspaper editor Rana Pratap was allegedly shot in the head by a group of men who also slit his throat. 7 bullet casings were found beside his body. Earlier, garment worker Deepu Chandadas was beaten to death and set on fire, creating fear within the Hindu community.
These attacks have led to criticism of law and order in Bangladesh under Muhammad Yunus. Since the political transition in August 2024, rights groups have warned of rising political and communal violence in Bangladesh, especially against minorities. The Yunus government has ruled out communal violence in the killings.
Now, the incidents have led to widespread protests, not just in Bangladesh, but also in India. Indian government has condemned attacks on minorities and has called for peace and stability in Bangladesh. The reported killings come ahead of February 12th elections in Bangladesh.
Voting has closed in Myanmar's controversial 3-stage general election. The military-backed Union Solidarity and Development Party USDP is presumably heading for a landslide victory.
Now, the ongoing civil war sharply dropped Myanmar's voter turnout to about 55% in the first 2 phase polls. It was over 70% in the 2020 elections. The third phase of the elections has just wrapped up in Myanmar's urban centers, even as large swathes of the country were excluded. The excluded areas were either under the control of anti-junta forces or gripped by active fighting. Voting was conducted in only 202 townships out of the country's 330, and this has also reduced Myanmar's total parliamentary seats from 664 to 586, and a quarter of the seats are automatically handed to the armed forces under a military-drafted constitution.
By the first 2 out of 3 rounds, the junta-backed USDP had already secured a majority in both Myanmar's lower and upper house of parliament. Locals from the country's war-torn regions say that the victory was ensured by the junta's tightening grip and absence of any real opposition.
I don't think the election should have been held. It is unlikely to be free or fair. Holding an election during such a difficult time appears to be an attempt to look good to the international community while using the public for legitimacy.
Throughout the 3-phase polls, more than 400 people were prosecuted under a new election code that criminalizes any form of anti-junta protest or criticism of the vote. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, has refused to endorse or certify the election, while critics call the polls engineered and fundamentally illegitimate. The military insists that the polls mark a return to democracy.
Whether the international community recognizes this or not, we don't understand their perspective. The people's vote is the recognition we need.
The election comes just days before the 5th anniversary of the 2021 military coup, which plunged Myanmar into a brutal civil war.
Former civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi remains detained, while her National League for Democracy, which won the 2020 election, has been dissolved and barred from contesting. Monitoring groups estimate more than 90,000 people have been killed since the coup, with airstrikes intensifying even as the voting took place. At least 15 people have died and several are missing after a ferry carrying more than 350 people sank near an island in southern Philippines.
Officials said that so far 316 passengers have been rescued. According to Coast Guard officials, an inter-island cargo and passenger ferry en route from port city of Zamboanga to southern Jolo Island it sank around midnight following reported technical problems. The vessel was carrying 332 passengers and 27 crew. Officials said that so far 316 passengers have been rescued. The ferry went down in good weather about a nautical mile from the island village of Baluk in the Basilan province.
Now, Coast Guard Commander Romel Dua said Coast Guard and Navy ships, along with the surveillance plane, an Air Force Black Hawk helicopter, and fleets of fishing boats are conducting search and rescue operations off Basilan. He added that there were no signs of overloading and that a detailed investigation will be conducted to determine exact cause of the incident.
And India has announced the names for one of its most prestigious civilian awards, the Padma Awards, on the eve of the 77th Republic Day.
And a total of 131 personalities were chosen across the Padma Vibhushan, and Padma Shri categories. The list includes several prominent figures from public life, art, cinema, literature, sports, and public affairs, including 19 women, 6 from abroad or Indian origin, and 16 posthumous honors from Kerala Chief Minister V. Achyutanandan, who will be conferred with the Padma Vibhushan posthumously.
Former Kerala Chief Minister has posthumously been awarded the Padma Vibhushan, while former Jharkhand Chief Minister and Jharkhand Mukti Morcha founder Shibu Soren has posthumously been honoured with the Padma Bhushan. Former Maharashtra Governor and former Uttarakhand Chief Minister Bhagat Singh Koshyari has also been named for the Padma Bhushan.
Now, Mammootty, the legendary superstar of Malayalam cinema, has been honoured with Padma Bhushan for his immense contribution to arts, while veteran Bollywood actor Dharmendra received a posthumous Padma Vibhushan for his iconic roles. Actor R. Madhavan, who has also received Padma Shri for his outstanding contribution to Indian cinema.
Singer Alka Yagnik, industrialist Uday Kotak and late advertising icon Piyush Pandey were also honoured with the Padma Bhushan.
In cricket stars Rohit Sharma and Harmanpreet Kaur got Padma Shri for leading India to the T20 World Cup and the Champions Trophy wins, while tennis icon Vijay Amritraj was also honoured with Padma Bhushan.
Now, the Padma Shri Awards highlighted a rich mix of prominent public figures alongside unsung heroes encompassing excellence in science, medicine and social service.
Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has congratulated the recipients for their excellence and service to the nation. And the White House says tariffs will bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States.
But the latest data tells a different story altogether. After a brief early year bump, factory employment has turned negative, with tens of thousands of manufacturing jobs lost since Trump's Liberation Day in April last year. This raises fresh questions about whether trade protection can really revive American manufacturing. More in this next report. Take a look.
Just weeks before announcing sweeping Liberation Day tariffs, the White House highlighted a February gain of 10,000 manufacturing jobs, claiming US factories were roaring back, but the rebound was short-lived. Manufacturing employment began falling again in May and has declined every month since. Around 72,000 factory jobs have been lost since the tariff announcement in April, including 8,000 in December alone. Despite claims that higher import duties would revive domestic production, early data shows no sustained recovery in manufacturing employment. Economists say the job losses reflect deeper, long-running trends rather than tariffs alone. US manufacturing employment has been shrinking for decades due to automation, global supply chains, and competition from lower-cost producers, particularly in China. While tariffs can reduce import competition, they also raise input costs for US manufacturers that rely on imported components. Policy uncertainty has added to the pressure, with frequently changing tariff threats making it harder for businesses to plan investment and hiring. Even without tariffs, a broad manufacturing jobs boom would be difficult to achieve. In advanced economies, manufacturing employment typically declines as consumers spend more on services. In the US, job growth in 2025 has been concentrated in healthcare, food services, and social assistance. While government spending under infrastructure and semiconductor programs briefly boosted factory construction, that momentum has faded. Economists say there is little evidence that trade protection has reversed the long-term decline, suggesting the challenges facing US manufacturing are structural, not temporary. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
Maritime warfare is on the brink of a major transformation.
In the UK, a full-size autonomous helicopter has recently taken its first flight, signaling a shift in how navies may fight and protect their waters. And this helicopter, called Proteus, is designed to track submarines, patrol contested seas, and operate where human pilots may no longer need to go. Take a look at this report for more.
UK has successfully flown its first full-sized autonomous helicopter, marking a major milestone in the use of uncrewed systems in maritime warfare. Known as Proteus, the technology demonstrator completed its maiden flight at Pradenak Airfield in Cornwall, with a 6-minute test that confirmed the helicopter's basic flight and autonomous systems. Proteus has been designed to carry out high-risk missions, from tracking submarines to patrolling contested waters and tracking underwater vessels, at a time of rising tensions in the North Atlantic. Naval planners see it as a key part of future operations where uncrewed aircraft fly alongside manned helicopters in what is described as a hybrid air wing. This approach could place Proteus at the center of UK's Atlantic Bastion strategy, designed to counter evolving threats and protect both the UK and NATO allies across the North Atlantic. At the core of Proteus is a network of advanced sensors and onboard computers, powered by sophisticated software that allows the aircraft to interpret its surroundings. Instead of a pilot in the cockpit, these systems enable Proteus to understand the environment, process data in real time, and respond accordingly. But critically and crucially, it is also capable of making certain flight decisions on its own, a key step towards true autonomy. Proteus is among the world's first full-sized autonomous helicopters and a testbed for how future naval air power could operate.
All right, we shift our focus to cricket now. Abhishek Sharma's 14-ball 50 led India to a T20 series win over New Zealand. The hosts defeated the Kiwis by 8 wickets in Guwahati to win the third T20I and take an unassailable 3-0 lead in the series.
Well, India won the toss. They opted to field first in Guwahati. New Zealand were restricted to 153 for 9 of their 20 overs. Glenn Phillips top scored for the visitors with 48. Fast bowler Jasprit Bumrah took an impressive 3 wickets for 17, while Hardik Pandya and Ravi Bishnoi took 2 wickets each. In India's chase, Sanju Samson was dismissed for a duck off the first ball by New Zealand seamer Matt Henry. However, Abhishek and Ishan Kishan put on a quick 53-run partnership in just 19 balls. Kishan was dismissed for 28 of 13 balls by leg spinner Sodhi. Abhishek continued to dominate, reaching 50 with a 6 off the last ball of the power play. He became the second fastest Indian to reach this mark in T20 internationals, just 2 balls shy of his mentor Yuvraj Singh's record against England back in 2007. Abhishek finished with an unbeaten 68 off just 20 balls, smashing 7 fours and 5 sixes.
Captain Suryakumar Yadav was equally destructive, scoring 57 not out of 26 deliveries, including 6 fours and 3 sixes. Together, they powered India to a commanding victory, chasing down the target with 10 overs to spare. The win marked India's 9th consecutive T20 series triumph. The series is a warm-up ahead of the T20 World Cup, which will begin on February 7th in India and Sri Lanka. And in entertainment, the reign of Pandora has finally met its match in the courtroom of the future this weekend. The North American box office saw a significant shift as the sci-fi thriller Mercy officially dethroned James Cameron's Avatar. Now that's a big thing. Well, ending a dominant 5-week streak, that is. Sci-fi thriller Mercy, starring Chris Pratt, debuted atop the North American box office with $11 million in ticket sales, ending the 5-week reign of Avatar Fire and Ash. Pratt plays a man on trial for murdering his wife. Avatar Fire and Ash, the third installment in James Cameron's blockbuster fantasy series, came in second in the United States and Canada with another $7 million. And that puts its domestic box office haul at $378.5 million with an additional $1 billion overseas.
Disney's Oscar-nominated animated film Zootopia 2 churned along, remaining in third place at $5.7 million and crossing the $400 million mark in the US and Canada. In fourth place at $4.2 million was Lionsgate's The Housemaid. It is an adaptation of Frida McFadden's best-selling novel about a young woman who is hired by a wealthy couple with dark secrets.
All right, with that, we call a wrap to World Dinner for today. But don't go anywhere. News and updates will follow on the other side. You're watching Beyond World is One. Stay tuned.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
And welcome to a brand new edition of South India, a daily dynamic show that will capture the pulse of southern states.
By blending the special stories, the breaking alerts, and the culture developments as well. From the 7 News.
To make your heart skip a beat.